That's like the loudest noise I've ever dragging the jack home before. Now then everyone, as promised, we've came to see Tom. There's been quite a few people asking, even over the past few months, about this car. I think it was, what, 2 years ago when you started? Mm-hmm. So we started the videos like 2 years ago on this, and then obviously there was lockdown and the world turned upside down. And there's probably 1,000 stories of people out there who are going to build a car and it just never gets done. I'm one of them. But Tom is one of these people who just gets things done, and he's willing to put the hours in and dedicate every single minute he's got to getting something achieved, and he's proved that in the past with his other builds. So we're just going to have a walk around to see the progress today, because I'd say it's probably 90% finished now, right? So I mean, the attention to detail on this is like second to none, so we'll jump into it. Do you want to sort of re-explain for anyone who hasn't seen before, first of all what it is and then the details?
So what it is depending on where it's coming from, so it's either a Nissan Sunny truck or a Datsun 1200 truck or a Batty, whatever you want to call it. First saw one of these at Jackfest in October 2018, I think. And I sort of fell in love with it straight away. I was straight on sort of Yahoo auction and looking around for one, and I managed to find this one in Ireland. It had been imported but not registered, so bought it sort of sight unseen, a bit nervous, got it delivered and it actually turned up, so I was quite happy about that to start off with. I had to get it MOT'd and get it registered, and then literally as soon as I got it back from the MOT centre, I pulled the engine out and sort of chopped the back end off and started from scratch.
I think if anyone wants to see that, we've got a couple of videos from when we started pulling it apart initially. Yeah. In a whole different unit and different place altogether. And so if we start from I think if we work from the front, we'll just go through the details. I mean, just looking in the engine bay, it's pretty wild. So it's a K24, yeah? Yeah,
K24 Frank, so it's got a Type R K20 head on it. The head's been built, I've ported and polished it myself, and I've used some Skunk 2 Stage 3 cams, titanium retainers, dual valve springs, that kind of thing. Total overbuild for a stock bottom end, but I didn't really want to dig into a stock bottom end just because I wanted the reliability there. Having had forged engines in the past, they're not like this miracle that people think they are. They do shit themselves. I found out twice with the MX-5. So K20 was the plan from the start. I ended up getting the K24 cheap, so I adapted it a bit there. And on the back of that, I've got an RX-8 6-speed. They're a really nice gearbox if you're not making a lot of power, and the adapter plates are cheap.
I think as well. The adapter plate needed some modification, but I think we will need to show the shifter that you made as well, because that was it's pretty special.
So it would take hours and hours to go through every little bit that I've had to make for the car, because it's just insane. With every little bit I've done, it's required some of the modifications somewhere else, and the gearbox being one of them. So I've had to make my own adapter for a concentric slave cylinder. I had to adjust the adapter plate to get the engine lent over to the stock angle it was at, and then didn't really like the stock throw on it, so I've ended up designing my own short shifter for it as well, which was its own challenge. And then making that fit as well is also very difficult. So the firewall's being cut and boxed.
Yeah, none of this. I think we did show a little bit of this early on, but none of this is easy to do. There's no stone unturned on this car. I think pretty much every single part's custom, isn't it? So
yeah, I think the only things I literally haven't touched is probably the doors and the roof. So all of this front end, everything I'm touching here is brand new. Radiator mounts are brand new. The panels for the headlight mounts brand new. I've added a jacking point here.
I think as well, for anyone who doesn't know, the Hakosuka front kit is not just like a bolt-on affair, really. So like you say, you've had to remake a lot of this.
Yeah.
So the standard front end on this appears very different to what the
it's a bit sort of mini Clubman looking. The stock front end. It's a really nice looking front end with like a front splitter on it and that sort of thing. But when I saw the Sunny truck for the first time, it was with the Hako front conversion on it, and I knew that was what I wanted. I wanted the engine more first, so I started with the K20, and then I ended up getting a good deal on the front end kit, so I went with that as well, and it's sort of spiralled into this full build that I've got now, 2.5 years later.
We are the kings of getting carried away. I think all of Danny in here as well. You're guilty of it, aren't you? So.
Very much so.
Yeah, so I think we will catch up with Danny's cars in the future, because he's got two builds on the go at the moment. Pretty interesting. So I think it'd be wrong not to point out this exhaust manifold, because it's a work of art. We both watched, I think, a build series of an exhaust manifold, which I'm guessing what's planted the seed for this.
It was, who was it? It was
I think it was Speed Academy. Someone else. It was actually a 2002, wasn't it? That they built the manifold for.
They did like a modern versus vintage exhaust manifold build off, and that sort of sparked this idea in my mind. So I knew I wanted to do something funky with it, but at the same time it was sort of critical to get the exhaust to actually fit. Usually the exhaust is on the other side on this car, so the steering box and everything else down here gets in the way. There was no way of getting sort of a 4-to-1 manifold pointing straight down. It had to come over and scoot back underneath, and then even then the exhaust goes underneath the oil pan and then down the other side of the car. And that's why the passenger side, the floor is actually about 3 inches higher than on the driver's side, to make room for the exhaust, as well as a false floor for all the wiring. Yeah,
and that highlights the real lack of space in this car.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
It's deceptively small. It's even too small for me, kind of thing. I wish I had another 5-6 inches of leg room. Ideally.
And just for context, there's quite a big height difference between us two. So I've got zero chance. I think I did drive it once when it was standard, and it was very difficult even then. So front brakes, they are a Willwood kit, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's a Willwood Powerlight billet. So I don't know if they make these calipers anymore. They've went to a cast style.
Yeah, I think they are cast now, from what I've seen.
So I don't think it's really any better. It's just what I found. I got a good deal on them and some DS3000 pads at the time. Yeah,
and more than enough braking power for the weight of this car. But they're mated to, I think, what, S13 hubs, coilovers, knuckles, and then you've obviously manufactured these adjustable linkages and stuff from a kit.
So this is from a kit. And then I've remade this lower arm just a little bit shorter, and I've adjusted the ball joint angle so everything sits correctly at ride height, so we'll get some negative camber gain on bump rather than positive.
Yeah, and I think there was some caster issues as well initially, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was just, I tried to use sort of 4 or 5 degrees caster with this setup, and it was just way too heavy. The car probably raised about 1 inch when you turned the steering wheel, kind of thing, so I've dropped it down to 2, and it was a bit more manageable. It's still self-centered really well.
I think for a non-assisted, well, we'll get into the assistant stuff later on. It'll be okay, but it's not an older car like this. It will be very fast, but it's not going to be a high-speed car anyway, is it? So and that's really where caster comes into play. So
yeah.
Should we move inside? Do you want to go on that side? So as we mentioned, the cockpit itself is pretty small. But Tom's made a bit of effort to sort of hide everything, and a lot of the wiring and stuff is under a false floor. It's come out very neat, and it's really organised, and I think in comparison to standard, it just looks so much cleaner. Yeah.
I was really struggling for somewhere to hide my wiring, so underneath here I've got my ECU, I've got all the relays and the fuse boxes for everything to make the car run. And then I've made these steel panels which I've just trimmed with some 4-way stretch carpet, and then I've got some proper floor mats to go on top of these, so it's a bit more hard wearing. And once they're sort of in place, it looks really quite neat and tidy in there.
Yeah,
I mean, a floor mat on top of there.
And obviously once you've got a seat in there, that's covered as well. So yeah. It's super tight, but at the same time it looks really nice. So
I mean, I'll get the steering wheel and I'll sit in it to show you how small it is.
Yeah, and I think as well you've just been working on modelling up a mount for the dash as well. Have you've got that somewhere, haven't you?
I think I just moved it out of there.
Yeah. Is that the original?
This is the steering wheel that came with it. It did have a.
Oh, where's the Guinness badge?
Yeah, the Guinness badge is gone. It had a printed out Guinness logo that was sticked to a bloody ice cream tub lid.
Yeah, the Irish got straight onto it. They hadn't even registered the car, and it already had a Guinness badge in it.
Yeah. So with the steering wheel on, you can see there's really very little room for us.
Even, I mean, how tall are you, Tom?
5'6".
That's like, yeah.
So the steering wheel's a little bit offset to me. So the steering wheel is close at my left leg, so I'm just going to have to push my legs out when I'm turning, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of a period thing anyway.
Yeah.
I noticed it with the 2002, and I hadn't sat in it for such a long time, and I sat back in it and realised it was pretty offset.
Yeah.
And I think like under these and Cortinas and all that type of stuff, you've got the same issues.
Although it's not too bad. I'll manage. It's not as comfortable as say my MX-5 was, which was a really nice seating position for me. But I'll manage. Other than that, though, everything's really.
Well, I think we're gonna have to have a look at the shifter as well.
Yeah.
I think she's put a lot of time and effort into that. Right.
So yeah, with the RX-8 6 speeds, it has sort of a reverse lock mechanism where you push down to get into reverse. So I wanted to make a spherical bearing short shifter, which is fair enough, it's simple on some gearboxes, but with this I had to make a lockout for the reverse, which also acts as the guide for 5th and 6th gear. So I ended up coming up with this sort of lever mechanism. So I've got this stainless lever with 2 springs inside of it, and pushing up against that gets me into 5th and 6th, and then if I want to get in reverse, all I do is I just pull past it to get into reverse. So it works really, really well.
It's very, very direct, and
yeah, and obviously
like
the throw is like really short.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's so short to where you miss. I mean, if I go into 2nd there, I can literally push forward as fast as I can, and it'll go into 3rd.
Yeah.
So you don't need any more than that, really.
I think it's on like CAE levels of precise shifting.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally no play in it.
Yeah. I think you're quite proud of that, aren't you?
It's one of my more favourite bits.
Right. Suppose we'll carry on back over if you can pry yourself out.
Yeah.
So initially, I think we did go over it a little bit in the past, but it is an S13 rear subframe.
Yeah.
With a CAS diff. Yeah.
Yeah, CAS 2-way.
Yeah. So that as much as.
Shall I lift the car up, or do you want to?
No, let's go a little bit. All right. As much as, I mean, obviously everything's been recoated and looks really nice under here, and it's basically just a brand new car underneath, but I think the real showpiece is up here, and it's. Do you want to explain a little bit about the suspension, because it's It's obviously a pretty intricate push rod setup, modelled on the S13 rear subframe.
Yeah. So it basically stemmed from the issue with the S13 having strut tops, whereas with the pickup I would have had to either have something really ugly looking for the struts to go into, which would have been on show anyway, or I could have put a bit of effort in and made something like really cool looking with the push rod setup. So at that point I'd already sort of started making the roll cage, and with us being handy with SolidWorks and 3D modelling, I basically just modelled this up in SolidWorks with the bed that I'd made, and just made something that looked like it was going to work. And then all these parts have been laser cut and welded together, and sort of just put it on the car and gave it a test, and it seemed to work really well. So obviously with the roll cage being in the back, it's people are going to come and have a look and then they'll spot that. So
yeah, I mean, it's did you have an extra panel to cover this from? I can't remember now.
I was considering either having perspex or smaller cutouts for the push rods, but I figured why not just have the whole of it on shore, because then you can see that it's not a solid axle anymore, it's independent rear suspension. And I think people might recognise the RS 2200 diff, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone who's into cars is going to want to look at it, and so
yeah.
And you know, we're all kind of guilty of getting on our knees and looking underneath cars, but I suppose for this you don't really have to, do you?
Yeah.
'Cause you can see the interesting parts.
Yep, and then I've just got the old ammo box that I've had powder coated for my battery, and then the fuel pump relays in there as well.
I suppose it's easier to hide things if you're sort of the standard pickup thing, the ammo box.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it had like a toolbox in it originally that was just screwed down, and it had the battery in the back already, but I wanted something a bit more neat and tidy. And then I've got the appropriate number plate for it as well, being 2.4 litre.
Sick. So, I mean, it sort of goes. I mean, the car, it speaks for itself. Obviously, the attention to detail, but I don't think we've addressed the fact that you've literally done every single piece of this yourself, I think, haven't you? So
yeah. I think the only thing I've outsourced is having the head machine work done for the valve guides, and then powder coating. Basically, that's all I can think of.
Yeah, which is really just due to not having the facility to do it. So
yeah, I mean, if I had a powder coating oven, I'm sure I'd have a crack at it. Same with the machine work for the head, but
yeah, I mean, like if you'd sort of seen the process of this and how much time and effort has gone into the bodywork, modelling parts up, designing things, custom fabrication, it's insane really. And for someone to have painted their own car for the first time and for it to come out like this, it's pretty mind-blowing, I think. And I
was very nervous when I came to paint the car, and I was just hoping that it was going to come out alright, because I sort of volunteered myself to paint my mate's car as a practice run, and it was a bit shit. So it's alright because he crashed it straight away anyway. But
who was that?
Andy, from the Red Civic.
Oh right, yeah. So but this one, it's a bit got a bit of orange peel to it, but it's no more than like a brand new car kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, that's speaking from a standard of, like, you know, you literally buy a brand new car and it will have small paint defects and stuff that you have to correct anyway. So you've done as good a job as what anyone else would have done, I think.
Yeah. I just wanted it to be at the level where I didn't have to sort of wet sand and polish it, because I'm not into my detailing. I don't really care how shiny my car is. I want to smash it down some B roads, and if it gets a few battle scars, it has a few battle scars. It's nice when your car's gleaming and does look nice at shows and that, but I don't have the time in the day to be washing my car every few days kind of thing.
Which I think is the best way to be, really. I mean, obviously you've done all this yourself, and to sort of sit under the drive and just polish it and never do anything, you know, like, it'd kind of be a bit of a waste really, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, this alone, like, if you sort of sit and look at small details, like the fishtail exhaust side exit out of the panel is like something that would stand out, but because there's so much detail on the car, you could sit and look at it for such a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried not to, as much as it's very orange and bright and in your face, I've tried not to be over the top and garish with anything. I mean, I'll put the R logo in there just because there was a nice space for it, but that's pretty much the only one on the car, and that just hints towards the fact that it's got the Type R head on it, on the engine.
I think if you keep stuff minimal, you know, it's correct, and obviously the orange is period, isn't it? You know, it's
very similar to one of the OEM colours, but a bit more to my liking.
Yeah, I think as it came out with the OEM colour's a little bit dark, isn't it? But
yeah. Well, there's hidden details and stuff like the wash tanks in where the stock vents were, so I can put the washer fluid in here, and then the wiper motor and also the washer motor are hidden underneath the dash now, so there's nothing in the engine bay.
And you can see as well, like, even like, you know, you've done all the wiring harness yourself and stuff, and everything's done properly.
Yeah, I mean, I could show you the harness that came off the car, and you'll probably realise why I didn't want to reuse it. So is that literally the whole car? That's the whole car.
That's crazy.
So there's an old alarm system on it, but you look at the state of the fuses that were on the car, and you're like, yeah, that's a fire waiting to happen. Isn't it? Yeah, what I did was I bought a kit car harness, and I just adapted that to work with the car, so extended what needed extending and added what needed adding. Probably spent a week and a half, 2 weeks doing all that, which I really wasn't looking forward to, but by the end of it I quite enjoy wiring now. It's quite therapeutic, as long as it works first try.
Yeah, well, maybe if you weren't disappearing off to Norway you could do mine, but it's not something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
So I'm sure people are going to ask, because it's just what people do on the internet, what are your expected power figures for?
Well, it's already been tuned, so I know them.
Oh yeah, so it has. You haven't made any changes since, have you?
Obviously the car had a full dry build, and I got it tuned at that point, and it made 262 horsepower, 200 foot-pounds, which was a little bit less than I was expecting with the headwork on the engine, but also not too surprising.
But it was on Pete Star, no? Yeah, so that's more of a realistic figure, whereas it might make
it would definitely make 280, 285 on most other dynos. And if I wanted to get towards the sort of 290 numbers, I'd need some high compression pistons, which again I didn't want to go that deep into the engine.
I don't think it needs it. I mean, what do you expect, mate? 800 kilos or something, maybe, finished?
The truck weighs 750 kilos stock. Obviously I've added quite a bit to it now. I'd expect probably about 900, I think.
Even that, like, I mean, 260, 270-ish with 900 kilos is going to be fast.
Yeah.
And it's also geared fairly low to...
Yeah, it's a 4.3 rear diff with the 6-speed RX-8 box, which is the same ratios as the MX-5 6-speed, but in that car I had a 3.9, and that topped out at like 140, so this will have a similar top speed, but only because it revs higher. So you'll be on B roads in sort of 4th, 5th and 6th, which is like... Yeah, that's what you want, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, it's going to rip. I wish I fit in it. That's going to be the main problem, I think. I might try and somehow cram myself into the passenger seat for
maybe take the passenger seat out.
Just harness myself to the bulkhead.
Yeah, I think you'll be very uncomfortable, but you might just about fit.
I think just for a one-off, it's going to be worth it, isn't it? But well done, Tom, because it's mad.
Yeah, but obviously it starts now as well.
I think we'll have to do it, won't we?
I'll say that, watch it not start.
warmed up a little bit now and it's targeting the 850 RPM idle. Got a bit of shock.
I probably could make it sound a bit more upbeat with the cam timing, but I've not messed about with that.
Yeah. It sounds really good. I mean, you must be over the moon with this because it's come at, like, it's got to have exceeded expectations. I think it has for everyone else anyway.
It sounds nothing like I expected a K24 or K20 sound as well. Probably partly due to the unequal length exhaust manifold, and also it's 3 inch straight through and then it's 3.5 inch from the back box to the tip, which will make it a bit lower, I think. But it's got a really throaty sound rather than a rasp to it, as you might expect.
Yeah, I mean the K's have got a very sort of distinctive sound on it, so it's definitely different. Obviously the displacement probably sounds slightly different anyway.
Yeah.
20 to 24. But
although saying that, I've drove a K24 Frank, like Butcher's 10, and that's much more raspy than this is.
Yeah. Pretty short exhaust there in the short car.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly a lot of K-swap stuff. A lot of vibration. I know they're very. I mean, as an engine, that's what they do anyway. But,
this may as well be solid mounted, but it doesn't really feel like it vibrates a whole lot. Even on the, I mean, you can feel it, but even on the ramp, not on its wheels, it doesn't feel too bad.
Yeah, I think it's good. Sort of expected it to be a lot more buzzy, you know, like to shake the whole thing, especially in an old car. It's come out really well. Yeah, I mean, Tom's way exceeded my expectations of what this was going to be like. I mean, I always, from day one, I knew it was going to be good, but it's pretty impressive, Tom, I must say. Should be proud of yourself.
Thank you very much.
And it's not very often I'm nice to you, is it? So.
No, nobody is.